Welcome everybody, thank you for tuning in, and today we are going to talk about Bitcoin soft forks. Now, a soft fork is a really smart way to upgrade the Bitcoin protocol in a way which minimizes the risk if not everybody upgrades at the same time. It is also a way to upgrade the protocol so that the upgrade itself reflects the majority of the users. We call that the economic majority. Okay, so it might help to start looking at what a soft fork is not. Now, an opposite of a soft fork is called a hard fork. In a hard fork, the protocol is changed instantaneously, and those who do not participate in the upgrade are automatically forked off, and these older nodes now follow a separate chain because the consensus rules have changed. Now, in a decentralized system, it is obviously impossible to coordinate all upgrades at the same time in a given moment, so that hard forks will always occur when the protocol is upgraded this way. So that is a big security risk that soft forks solve. So here's a great example of a Bitcoin feature that was deployed with a soft fork. This is BIP 16 pay to script hash. And in pay to script hash, there are actually no new opcodes introduced. So it is a script that can be interpreted by both the older nodes and the upgraded BIP 16 nodes. So this is how the script evaluates for both versions. First, the signatures are popped on. Then the redeem script is popped onto the stack. Then the redeem script is hashed and its digest is put onto the stack. Then the target hash from the script pub key is put onto the stack. And if the two hashes on the stack evaluate to 0, op equal will then pop on a 1 or true onto the stack. Now for the older nodes, the validation of the script is now over. It has validated true. For the newer BIP 16 nodes, however, there is a special rule which says if op equal evaluates to 1, the redeem script and signatures of the script are evaluated themselves. So here we pop back on the redeem script, and if signatures and redeem script evaluate to true, only then is this a valid pay to script hash transaction. Now, the advantage of this is obviously that both nodes can interpret the pay to script hash script. The disadvantage is that there can be a situation where you may have a redeem script that hashes to the target hash correctly. However, the signatures and redeem script do not evaluate to true. In this situation, the new nodes would reject this, but the old nodes would accept this transaction. The implications of this are complex and depend on both on user and miner support, which we will look at next. So here's an overview of what happens when we transmit one of these new transactions onto the network. So here you have an overview of upgraded nodes and miners on the right side and unupgraded users and miners on the left side. So let's say what happened. Let's say we create a new transaction. This could be a pay to script hash transaction as we saw before, one that is valid under the new rules. It is accepted by both sides. However, it is propagated by the upgraded node and ultimately mined in a block by an upgraded miner. Okay, so this block is now valid for both the upgraded user, but also for the unupgraded user node because it's backwards compatible. What's interesting though is what happens when we create a transaction that is not valid under the new rules. So for example, this could be the pay to script hash transaction we saw before, where the redeem script hashes correctly, but where the signature and the redeem script do not evaluate to true. This part of the transaction in the pay to script hash script is not evaluated by the older nodes. So they'll just accept the transaction. The older miners will mine it, and this old block ultimately will be rejected by the newer nodes. However, if we have a situation where the majority of the miners support the upgraded version of the protocol, we will always have more newer blocks being mined than older ones because they have more hashing power. So the chain of the upgraded chain ultimately will grow faster, will be a longer one, and the old node, because it accepts both versions of the protocol, it will look at the longest chain, longest upgraded chain, and ultimately reorg and accept that one itself. So now we have a fantastic situation where all nodes in the network are following the same upgraded chain. We have global consensus, even though not all nodes have upgraded to the newest version of the protocol. And this is really the beauty of soft forks. This is what we're trying to get at. However, there can be a situation where the majority of miners do not support the upgrade in the protocol, as we have here. So what will happen then is the longest chain will be mined by the older miners. The older blocks will be obviously accepted by the unupgraded users and rejected by the upgraded nodes. So the upgraded nodes will follow their own shorter chain, shorter because they have less hashing power. And what we now have is a fork. So the older nodes and the newer nodes are not following the same chain and do not have the same history of the blockchain. So we can generalize those previous scenarios in a 2x2 matrix. The ideal quadrant is the one where the majority of users support the upgrade and the majority of miners support it as well. In this case, the longest chain will be the upgraded one, and both new and old nodes will be following it. So we have global consensus without having all nodes to upgrade at the same time. There can be a scenario, however, where only a minority of the miners support this new upgrade. In this case, the majority of miners will create a fork because they are still mining on the old protocol, on the old chain, and they are also risking that their rewards are being mined on a chain that the majority of the users do not accept. There is a scenario also where the minority of users only accept the upgrade, but the majority of miners are mining it. And this is a situation where basically the old nodes, which are the majority, they are being forced to follow the longest chain, which is upgraded because it's supported by the majority of the miners. This is considered a type of 51% miner attack. Finally, we have a situation where neither the users nor the miners support the upgrade. Now, the minority of miners mining the upgrade will then be risking that their rewards are being mined on a chain which is only accepted by a minority of the users. So the ideal quadrant is really the one where both users and miners support the upgrade. In order for a Softfork deployment to be successful, therefore, it is important to know in which of the quadrant we find ourselves before the upgrade is actually deployed, and this is done via signaling. So both nodes and miners have specific ways of signaling how or whether they support an upcoming BIP, an upcoming Bitcoin Improvement Protocol. In the case of the nodes, it's done in the version message, as we see here. So we can see UASF SegWit BIP 148 is directly mentioned in the version message, and we can say, okay, that's a node that supports this BIP. In the case of the miners, the BIP signaling is done in the block version of the block they mine. So in the block version, the first 29 bits are used or reserved for BIP signaling. Each of these bits, if they're switched to 1, means the miner that mined that block supports that specific Bitcoin Improvement Protocol. So over time, it is then possible to observe how much of the network is in support of an upgrade. So here we can see how the SegWit support for amongst the users grows over time, and on the right side we can observe how many of the previous blocks were mined with a block version signaling support for SegWit. And if that grows beyond a certain threshold, we can then say, yes, now it is safe to deploy this the Softfork because there's enough support on the user side, but also on the miner side for it. So in conclusion, a Softfork success really depends ultimately on the users or node support. The miners will want to support the majority of users because that's where their rewards are being mined. However, if there is less than 50% miner support, there is a certain security risk because the network will then fork, as we observed before. So that is why we always wait for the signaling to reach a sufficiently high threshold for both users and miners before a Softfork is activated so that the network can safely deploy the upgrade. I hope that was useful. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.